Minecraft is a fun game, but there may be periods of time that you set it down for a while and come back to it at a later point in time. But what if you came back to Minecraft, loaded up an old world expecting nostalgia and memories, only for you to discover there are things you know you didn't build in it, witnessing strange and unexplainable occurrences, and facing memories of the past that might have been better left forgotten? Meet PlueJ33, a Minecraft channel that got sent to me through Discord. When I checked out their channel, I knew I needed to look deeper into it, but what I found was a rabbit hole so deep that it might have been better to ignore the call to investigate. But I ignored these warnings, and instead focused my attention on the first video titled, My New World. We begin by opening on PlueJ33, I'll just call them Plue for now, who greets the audience and tells us that they want to show off the new world since they were bored. They begin showing us around the outside of the house, pointing out some snowy hilltops above their house. They decide to go chop wood so the video isn't too boring, but then there seems to be a small cut where now instead of being in full screen, we're now in what appears to be a windowed movie style view with black bars on the top and bottom of the screen. Plue lets us know that their recording bugged and hope nothing was lost. They continue playing by chopping down trees until their wooden axe breaks. They head back to the house in order to craft a new axe, but they realize that they made another wooden axe by mistake. They then appear to go back into the forest to chop down more trees, and the video ends there. The video seemed normal enough at first glance, but the screen changing from full screen to windowed felt off. I decided to take a look at the video one more time, first checking the description of it, which read, "I wanted to show off my new world and house I made. By the way, the game went to windowed mode and it might have messed up the recording. Sorry, June 10th, 2021. So we have a date as to when this was recorded, which we'll note for later. Looking back at the actual video once again, I found something very interesting. If you have captions enabled while watching the video at around the 2-minute 49-second mark, we get this jumble of letters and numbers that stay on screen until 3 minutes and 27 seconds. It looks like the end portion of a YouTube URL. Going forward, we'll always have captions enabled in order to see if there's anything hidden in the captions. By entering this hidden caption into the end of a YouTube URL, we get sent to an unlisted video titled Copper Castle, which marks the beginning of the real mystery. The video begins by having someone in a night skin surrounded by what appears to be a copper castle. Guess that's why it's the title of the video. They say hello to us, but their name is glitched out, which is an interesting detail. They tell us they want to show us the castle they made using the new blocks, and they also want to show something that they have planned for someone that means a lot to them, but they don't actually post this as a chat and delete it. They let us know that they haven't done much to the inside and say that maybe she could help them decorate. This could be referring to the someone that he had something special planned for. The video then glitches a bit, and we can see some chats that we missed. She is a survival player after all, and already has so maybe she found cool places too. They then go outside of the castle and we see that the entire sky is glitching in the same way that the glitching name is. The player doesn't appear to notice this as they continue on with showing us the copper castle by showing us the roof. The glitch on the left side grows even more as they show us the outside of the castle, but what the player says next is very surprising. It's ugly, I know. PlueJ told me it was too. This is super interesting. We now know that there's a confirmed connection between the knight and Plue, but what is the connection exactly? The only possible connections we can see at this time is the glitching we see in the unlisted video and the recording bug Plue mentions in video 1, as both seem to have problems with their footage to varying degrees. We also see that the style of videos, being that both videos aren't recorded in full screen and instead a movie style format and windowed, are similar as well. The connection between these two players could be explored later on, but for now, all we can do is keep watching. The player then lets us know that they can't believe she didn't like the copper blocks, hoping that maybe she likes the player though. The player then flies to an area of the forest nearby where a bee is tied to a post. The player plants flowers around the post, then says that they'll take her here so she doesn't have to see the ugly castle. The player then says that she likes bees, flies around a bit, and then there's an extremely heavy glitching as we fade to red. Then a word appears on screen, rejection, and this is the end of the unlisted video. There is so much to unpack with this video, and some secrets contained within it, so let's break it down. The first thing is that there is a confirmed connection between Plue's footage and the unlisted video, as the player in this unlisted video confirms this. What that connection is, however, is not explicitly stated yet. The next thing is all of the corruption that we see, which could be correlated to what we find in the description of the video, which says, "File name June 9th, 2021 is corrupted." So we have a date to work with, which is one day before Plue's video, being June 10th, 2021. This could also explain all of the corruption seen inside of the video. Watching the video with captions on, we see a few sets of captions that appear throughout the video. The first set appears at 1 minute and 41 seconds. This is encoded text, and we can decode it using a Caesar cipher shifted by 7 to reveal the hidden message that says, "Why did she say no?" Could this have been her response to the player asking her to help decorate the inside of the castle? Could the word rejection that we saw at the end of the video relate to this? Because by saying no, it usually means a rejection of some sort. We can only speculate on its meaning for now. Another set of captions appear in the video at 2 minutes and 8 seconds. This is another Caesar cipher, and shifting it by 7 once again, we get the following decoded message.
The water is now a shade of reddish pink. He hears the cars drive over the bridge above him.
What does this even mean? If water is a reddish pink, it can mean one of two things. The first could be taken in a literal sense that blood has been spilled in the water, which would turn it to a reddish pink color, so something could have happened to someone. The second is that it could be making reference to the reddish pink glitching that we see in the footage. There's more captions that could help explain what's going on. The next set of captions appear in the video at 3 minutes and 26 seconds. Once again, this is a Caesar cipher, and using a shift of 7, we get the following decoded message.
The sirens are loud, but they are unaware they're too late. One's laughter and mocking causes another's passing.
This is very dark. It implies that someone was killed due to laughing and mocking someone. Sirens could potentially be police sirens, and it would make sense in the context of these captions, as the killing may have already occurred and that the police are too late. Again, this is speculation based on what's here. Another set of captions appear in the video at 4 minutes and 3 seconds. You guessed it, by using a Caesar cipher with a shift of 7, we get the following decoded message.
However, the spirit lingers to torture the one that made it dispose of his mortal form.
This could imply that someone is being haunted after something horrible happened. Whether this is a manifestation of the guilt felt after doing something horrible to someone, or if it's a literal spirit isn't known. But again, this is speculation based on what's here. Putting these 3 long captions together, we get the following.
The water is now a shade of reddish pink. He hears the cars drive over the bridge above him. The sirens are loud, but they are unaware they're too late. One's laughter and mocking causes another's passing. However, the spirit lingers to torture the one that made it dispose of his mortal form.
The implications of this are extremely dark when the captions are put all together. So far, we've narrowed down our story to 3 people: Plu, the Knight, and a mystery woman. The relationship between all 3 is not too clear at the moment. I do think it's interesting that the Knight says that she likes bees, because Plu has a bee skin on, and Plu has a bee profile photo. Going back to Plu's channel, we click on the next video titled, Something I Didn't Do. The video opens with some text where Plu explains that the first few minutes were corrupted for some odd reason, but Plu is just exploring an old world of theirs, and we do see slight corruption at the beginning of the video. We also see some chat logs that might have been said during the few minutes of corruption that we don't get to see. The chat reads,
Hey anyone who stumbles across this. I found an old world of mine and wanted to explore it. I think I made this in 2021. Yes, that's right. Lol, I don't even remember how to play this game.
Plu comes across a small cave, saying that it looks weird. Plu then wanders around a bit more, climbs up a small hill, then finds a tree with half of its leaves missing. Plu notes this, but continues exploring. Plu looks at a small house in the distance, and it appears to be the world from the first video that Plu was currently in. Plu then makes some very interesting statements.
It might be because it's an old world, or maybe it's because of the seed I used when I made it. I got it from someone I knew.
This is extremely interesting. It brings up a very big question. Who did Plu get the seed from? It's highly likely that Plu got the seed from the Knight in the unlisted video, considering that each of their videos were made only one day apart from each other, with the Knight's video on June 9th and Plu's video on June 10th. The Knight could have given the seed to Plu on either day. Also, the biggest piece of evidence for this is if you look very closely at the surrounding areas where the Knight and Plu have their houses, you can see the same snowy mountain and see that they have put their houses basically in the exact same spot as one another. The seed does seem to have weird instances in it, and footage corruptions could also be a coincidence, but I think there's more to the seed that Plu used. For now, we can only keep watching. Plu keeps exploring their old world, kills a sheep, harvests some pumpkins, gets poked by a berry bush, stumbles upon a wandering villager, but then we stumble onto this, a book inside of an item frame. We see the book is titled Ion, but when Plu takes the book out of the frame, this happens. What just happened? It seems like the footage glitched pretty hard here, repeating the same sequence for a bit, becoming more corrupted each loop. We then sat on a black screen for a little bit before glitching back into the footage. We'll check this out and the book a bit more later for further analysis, but we need to keep watching. When we cut back in, Plu questions if they made this, but it doesn't seem like they remember making it, despite it being right next to their house. They look at the trades with the wandering villager, noting the new stuff. They chop the log that held the item frame on it, only to reveal a hidden trapdoor underneath and a small glitch that appears for a second. Instead of going down the trapdoor, they cover it up with the pumpkins and we get another glitch on screen. Plu then changes their mind and removes the pumpkins and goes down the trapdoor, glitching slightly. It reveals a small chamber with a bed, empty signs, chains, and copper lanterns. What Plu says in chat is extremely interesting.
It had to happen someone who came over. I would never use copper, lol. This is a little creepy though.
Yep, you said it, Plu. This is extremely creepy, as it almost seems like a holding cell of sorts, but Plu's statement are what stick out here. The only other person we know that uses copper is the Knight. So is it possible that the knight visited Plu's world at some point and built this? Or is there something darker going on behind the scenes in this world? It's a question with no answer at the moment, so we need to keep watching. Plu notices that the wandering trader is also down in there with them, but they're invisible with the particles coming off them and the leads extending up through the blocks. Plu kills the wandering trader, and while doing so, the footage corrupts. Plu laughs at the villager for being dumb. Then they notice a hole in the ground, go into it, and the footage begins corrupting once again. Plu follows the tunnel down into the darkness. They come across some water, but as they're about to get out of the water, the screen goes red with the word curious on it. The footage then cuts to Plu back inside of the weird room, making a crafting table and some doors, and they go back down the hole. Plu says that curiosity is getting the better of them and they enter the water. They use the doors as a way to create air pockets under the water. They reach the other side of the watering cavern, revealing a tunnel with more coppered lanterns. Plu follows the tunnel down to another area with water, and we get jump scared by what appears to be a glitched zombie and a glitched inventory. Plu says they hate fighting in this game, and based on their health, the jump scare we see could have been to show that they fought a zombie in the cave, and this is confirmed based on the zombies that we see while Plu is blocking off another tunnel. What Plu says next sent chills down my spine.
I feel like I'm not alone here for some reason.
Plu thinks it's just the dark, but I'm not so sure. Plu goes into the next section of water and looks around. We start seeing the pinkish glitches that we saw in the knight's video. Plu doesn't appear to find anything else in the water. They then begin to go into the cave a bit further, exploring it in the dark until they come across this. A bunch of coppered lanterns stacked up. Plu then says something absolutely terrifying.
I didn't do this.
Plu makes their way back through the tunnel, eventually reaching the surface and makes their way back to their house. They grab cooked mutton out of the furnace and go to sleep. They wake up and it's now daytime and the rain has stopped. We then cut to black and distorted Minecraft music begins playing. And this is the end of the video. There is so much we need to break down and investigate further. Let's begin with a strange book. The book that we see is called Ion, and if we look it up, it's actually a deity associated with time, and the time that Ion represents is perpetual and unbounded, where the future is a returning version of the past. This is going to be very important for later, but it may not make much sense right now. When Plu picks it up, we glitch, cut to black, then cut back in. But for a split second we see the following image. It's a corrupted image that has a strange string of letters and numbers. This is actually another YouTube end URL, but before we go to it, I want to break down the rest of the video first, as we get an extremely interesting perspective on the video if we turn captions on. The first captions can be found at 5 minutes and 16 seconds, during the pitch black part of the first major corruption, and the captions say,
"Let me show you what she caused."
She. Who's the she that the captions referred to? The only she that we know of at the moment is the mystery woman that the knight referred to a bit in their video. It's also interesting as the captions seem to be addressing us as the audience. At 6 minutes 14 seconds, we see another caption.
She attempts to ignore the one she hurt.
Who did she hurt? This seems to be a response to not being able to remember how the framed book got into Plu's world in the first place. At 6 minutes 34 seconds, we get a caption that says,
"Go back."
What's interesting is that Plu actually does go back to the trapdoor after blocking it with the pumpkins, but it's unclear if Plu changed their mind on their own or if whoever is putting these captions in the video had some degree of influence to change Plu's mind. At 7 minutes 13 seconds, a caption reads,
"Again, she laughs at the one she hurts."
This seems to be in response to Plu laughing at the wandering trader that they just killed. Wait a second. Is Plu the mystery woman in this story? It does make sense. Plu's YouTube profile photo is a bee. They have a bee skin, and the knight did say that the mystery woman liked bees. The captions reference a she, and the captions on it with what Plu is doing in the video. This is a huge discovery. This leaves us with a few important questions. Who is writing these captions? What did Plu do to the person who's writing these captions? Hopefully we'll have answers to these questions moving forward, but let's keep analyzing with this new discovery in mind. At 7 minutes 16 seconds, a caption reads,
"I thought you grew up while I was gone."
Again, it calls into question who's writing the captions, what relationship they had to Plu, and what do they mean by gone? There's many different ways we can interpret this, but again, we're just left with more questions than answers. At 7 minutes 20 seconds and 7 minutes 21 seconds, we get some extremely dark and violent captions.
"I want to hurt you so bad."
This is extremely concerning. This coincides with the heavy red glitching that we see in the video, and once again, it makes us wonder who's writing the captions and what relationship they had to Plu to make them want to hurt them so badly. While not a caption, at 7 minutes 48 seconds, we see the word curious pop on screen. It could be describing Plu's curiosity at seeing the water, or it could be something more ominous put in by whoever is putting in these captions as well. At 12 minutes 7 seconds, we get the following captions.
"If the world is ugly like me, maybe your mind will stop blocking the memories of me."
This is by far the most revealing captions, and I think I know who's behind them. I think that the Knight is behind these captions somehow. This reveals some critical information, specifically what's happening in the video when these captions play, and calling back to the Knight's video. We clearly see a bunch of copper lantern blocks, and we know that the Knight is the only one to use copper in the way that they do. The phrasing, "if the world is ugly like me," could be a direct callback to when the Knight specifically mentions that Plu called their copper castle ugly. What's left unanswered is the memories that the Knight seems to be referring to. What exactly did Plu do to the Knight to bring on this sort of hatred? I think it has something to do with the rejection based on the Knight's video, but what exactly happened? Was it a simple ask, like the Knight asking Plu to help decorate the interior of the copper castle and Plu said no? Or was it something more, such as a confession of love ending in a humiliating rejection? We do know that the Knight was hopeful that Plu would be interested in them, so this could be a possibility. Right now, we just can't say for certain, so we need to keep analyzing the video. At 12 minutes 14 seconds, we get a caption that sent chills down my spine.
"Don't act surprised. Because I'm dead, it doesn't mean I'm gone."
What did I just read? This brings up so many questions. Is the Knight a ghost haunting this world? Is the Knight haunting the channel? What happened between Plu and the Knight? We just don't know, but the questions are piling up quicker than I could put answers to them. At 12 minutes 26 seconds, we get a caption that says, "Liar." It's a response to Plu saying that they didn't do it. Clearly the Knight blames Plu for something, but we don't know what that something is. At 12 minutes 40 seconds, we get the captions,
"I don't care if you've truly changed. I just want you gone the same way I am."
This is absolutely insane. The Knight holds so much hatred for Plu that they wish for their death. Again, their burning question is what happened between Plu and the Knight. At 13 minutes 55 seconds, right before the video goes to black, we see the following caption, "Excuses." The Knight seems to think that Plu is making excuses for forgetting what happened, forgetting the death of the Knight, forgetting something important that isn't known to us at the moment. That's all the captions for that video, and they revealed so much and gave us a new perspective on the story. However, we're left with so many burning questions that we simply just don't have answers to at the moment. The description of the video reads,
"Exploring my old world. My video was corrupted by something. Don't mind the glitches. October 15th, 2025.
So this world was played 4 years later, which is a lot of time to pass by if they last played on the world in 2021. Let's circle back and we'll check out the YouTube URL that was hidden in the video. If we paste it into a browser, it leads us to a video called Rejection. We begin the video with what appears to be the Knight destroying their copper castle. The Knight then begins placing down TNT and they light it, setting off a chain reaction of explosions. We then see a glitch appear and it's a bit hard to make out what exactly it says, but it could say,
"It wasn't alone at all."
We're not quite sure what this means, if this is even the right words for what we're seeing. The footage begins to glitch even more as we see just how widespread the lava and destruction is. The Knight begins setting fire to everything, blowing up the world even more. The footage then cuts to an underground mineshaft, with the distortion of the video getting even worse. The Knight begins breaking very specific blocks and begins building something out of copper. The footage cuts to black, and then we see this message. We see a missing part in this message, and we can decode it using a Caesar cipher, shifted by 7, and when we do, the following message gave me goosebumps.
June 2021. Blank died.
Is this confirmation that the Knight is actually dead? It could make sense, but there's a bit more to the video before we say anything for certain. Eventually, we cut back into the Knight's world without any apparent glitching or distortions. They still appear to be in a destructive mood as they light fire to the mineshaft. They begin lighting the cave up with their flint and steel, and for a moment we see some sort of copper pillar or structure. The footage then cuts to black again, and we cut back in a moment later, seemingly with the Knight laughing to themselves and their names still not being visible in the chat. The Knight then says,
"I don't think they'd even realize that I'm gone."
They then jump off the mineshaft ledge, and the video distorts heavily, marking the end of this video. The video description reads,
"Rejection, humiliation, sadness, death. June 12th, 2021.
So we also have a date for this video as well. I also believe that rejection, humiliation, sadness, and death is the order of things that the Knight went through. The Knight was initially rejected by Plu, whether it was a confession of love, that small request to help the Knight decorate the interior of the copper castle, or even something that isn't made known to us yet. But this could explain rejection as we've seen in the analysis of the Knight's first video. The Knight must have been humiliated in some way, and it's highly likely that based on the Knight's hatred towards Plu and Plu's second video, Plu must have humiliated the Knight in some shape or form when rejecting the Knight. Naturally, this would make the Knight feel sadness as being humiliated on top of being rejected. It's not a good feeling. Out of sadness, the Knight seems to destroy everything in the world, only to build one final copper structure underground. As for death, I think the knight jumping off the mineshaft ledge might imply some extremely dark events that took place in the real world. This is coupled by the fact that there is text that says that someone died in June 2021 with the name being covered, and as the knight's name is covered, it's highly likely that it's the knight who died in June 2021. Again, the lingering question is, what did Plu do to the knight to have them go through all of this? To seek the answer, we just have to keep watching as we go back to Plu's channel and click on the third video titled The Caves. The video opens with Plu being back in their old world. They say hi, but let us know that they have to explore the caves without really knowing why, saying that it's a familiar feeling. A creeper blows up behind them, but luckily they don't take much damage. They try to eat their berries, but end up planting them instead, and Plu laughs it off. Plu finds the cave entrance and goes inside of it. They find some coal and start mining, only for another creeper to approach and explode. They explore the cave a bit more, then say something very interesting.
I don't know why anyone would mine copper. Well, I know someone who did. The same one who gave me the world seed.
This is confirmation that the knight is indeed the person who gave Plu the world seed of the world they're playing on right now. But what Plu says next feels like a guilty confession.
I was always rude to him, but I was also young. I haven't seen or heard from him since.
So it does seem like there is something that Plu might have done based on them knowing that they were always rude to the knight. It's not surprising that Plu hasn't heard from the knight in a while, since it seems like the knight is dead. But again, what happened between Plu and the knight to make things the way they are? We can only keep watching for now. Plu notices another creeper, but the creeper seems almost magnified, like it was far away and zoomed in on in video editing. It's odd, as there's already been two creepers that try to explode Plu. Plu then notices the copper structure, and upon closer inspection, we see that it appears to be very similar to the one that the knight built in their rejection video. Plu questions its existence, wondering how it got there and who built it, because we know that Plu didn't build it as they don't use copper. They don't ponder on it for too long as they explore most of the cave, mining more coal. They find a weird gap in the cave, and their footage begins corrupting heavily for a moment. Plu keeps exploring the cave, but finds himself heading down deeper into the cave to explore. We see they briefly find a mine shaft, but turn to go the other way. They come across a copper pillar that had ladders attached. Plu climbs the ladder, only stopping to look down due to a cave noise. They then continue climbing the ladder until they finally reach the top. When they break the block, they realize they're underneath a bed that's inside of a house. The footage then glitches heavily, cuts to black for a bit, then we cut to Plu attempting to get out of the hole. But as they finally escape from the hole, the realization sets in that the copper pillar led directly underneath Plu's own bed under Plu's own home. Plu seems just as confused and frightened as we are, and then it cuts to a death screen, saying that Plu was killed. The screen cuts to black, marking the end of the video. Let's break down what we can gather from this video. Plu does seem to remember the knight, remembers her fondness of copper, and even finds the knight's copper structure. I think the scariest part of this video is realizing that there is a copper pillar that goes directly underneath Plu's bed, and Plu clearly didn't know about this. The description of the video just has a date, which is October 19th, 2021, so this is 4 months after the main 2021 events. These videos also appear to be slightly out of order, as the last video we saw on Plu's channel took place in October of 2025. This is going to be important for later, as other videos appear out of order as well. If we watch the footage back with captions enabled, we get some interesting bits of information. At 9 minutes 22 seconds, the captions say,
You seem confused. You clearly don't know what's happening here. Surely you'll find out soon.
This is very ominous. It seems like the captions aren't only talking about Plu finding the hidden passage under her bed, but it also seems like the captions are speaking to us as well. It is fair to say that we're confused as well, not fully understanding what's happening despite having some pieces of the puzzle already, but hoping we find out soon. Right before the video ends, at 10 minutes 13 seconds, we get a full YouTube URL. By putting this video in, we get led to a video by the knight titled Tutorial. The video begins with the knight appearing to be in a super flat world. They greet us, but their name is still covered by glitches. They tell us that they'll be showing us how to troll your friends in Minecraft. They show us the victim's house, and they tell us to first see if they have a bed. We then immediately cut to Plu's home for a brief moment before cutting back to the tutorial video. They then say to go away from the house and dig a tunnel underneath their house right underneath their bed. We then cut to a dark red picture of what appears to be the copper pillar found in Plu's world. We cut back to the tutorial video where the knight is underneath the bed, presumably after digging the tunnel, and they say that now you can spy on them and scare them. They leave the hole and let us know to make sure that the hole is covered to hide the evidence so they don't find it. There's a small split-second glitch where the name tag is supposed to be, and it's a yellow box that says,
It isn't a long fall, Repock.
We finally know the name of the knight, Repock. We then cut into a small glitch area, cut to black, then we find ourselves at the very start of Plu's first video. While not a long video, there's a lot to unpack here, starting with the fact that this video is confirmation that Repoc is the one who's spying on Plu. But this brings up a very big question. Is this something that they built and left as is? Or is Repoc somehow still using it to spy on Plu in this world? The yellow box that says it isn't a long fall Repoc is very interesting. Could this be a statement from Plu? What's the fall that they're talking about here? We don't know, but we at least learned that the knight's name is Repoc. It's also super interesting that we would cut into Plu's first video from here, as now with the understanding that there's a tunnel underneath her bed, it's almost impossible to ignore in Plu's intro. Watching the video back with captions on, we see some interesting captions. At 59 seconds, we see captions that say,
"Maybe you should jump it. Maybe it'll get rid of the desire to do the bad stuff."
We're not entirely sure who could be saying this, as it could be Plu encouraging Repoc to jump, since the yellow box says that it's not a long fall, but it could be Repoc telling themselves to jump in an attempt to not give in to evil desires. We simply don't know for sure. The next caption at 1 minute 29 seconds reveals something huge.
"No, it isn't because of the date thing. Also, I just don't want to be with a weirdo like you. You're always saying you'll disappear, but it's never happened because you're a weak scaredy cat when I already said the fall wouldn't hurt."
This is Plu saying this to Repoc, and it reveals quite a bit. Plu did seem to reject Repoc, but also goes on to humiliate them a bit by saying that Repoc is a weirdo and calling them a weak scaredy cat because they won't do whatever jump they're attempting to do. This could have been what led Repoc to do what they do in the rejection video and why they jump off the mineshaft ledge at the end, which would make sense in this context. At 2 minutes 24 seconds, right before the yellow box appears, there's a caption that reads,
"What if I go with you? I'll make sure you don't drown or anything."
Is this how Repoc possibly died due to drowning somewhere? Or is this just a more sarcastic line from Plu since she thinks that Repoc is scared to make a jump? It could be the latter since the yellow box appears with the text that says it's not a long fall, but we don't know for sure. At 2 minutes 30 seconds, we get one single caption.
"Sorry."
Who is apologizing here? What are they apologizing for? Is Plu saying sorry for being mean to Repoc since they do acknowledge that they were rude to Repoc? Is it Repoc for spying on Plu by creating the tunnel underneath her bed? We just don't know. The description of the video reads,
"A tutorial where I show you how to scare your friends. Please don't make fun of my skin or the houses in the backgrounds. A tutorial where I show you how to scare your friends. Please don't make fun of my skin or the houses in the backgrounds. Are you sure it isn't gonna hurt? January 17th, 2021 / June 15th, 2021.
This is very interesting. We have two dates here, being January 17th and June 15th. January 17th is most likely when the tutorial video was made, but what would June 15th represent? Could that be the date when Repoc put the tunnel underneath Plu's bed? We don't know for sure, but there's a reason why that date is there. We also see that some of the letters in the description are weirdly capitalized, and the message repeats itself twice in the first part of the description. So if we take all of the capitalized letters and put them together from the first section, we get the following word, scary fall, which could represent Repoc's fear of falling. The line that says, "Are you sure it isn't gonna hurt?" could reinforce this idea as well. On Plu's channel, there's one final public video that might help us answer some remaining questions, so we click on the final video titled Saying Things. We begin the video with 15 seconds of darkness, then we cut back into Plu's world where we see a bunch of chat logs.
"Hi, I got back on after a while, I guess. I saw a zombie costume last night. It reminded me of someone I knew. He loved the zombies in this game. And I also had a dream, it felt like. I don't know. It felt like a memory of this place. So I'm back."
The zombie could be another reference to Repoc, as we did have that zombie jump scare a few videos back as it was all glitched. Plu also tells us that they don't know how long that tunnel has been there, something that we also wonder ourselves. Plu tells us they hate the dark because it's creepy, but that's when something extremely creepy happens. It suddenly gets dark inside the base, and when Plu goes to look, they see their torches were broken. They go outside and begin to ask,
"Where are..."
but erase it. We then cut back to the tunnel with the copper lanterns as they seem to be making their way back up to the surface through the weird chamber. We see that she patched the hole under their bed with cobblestone, and she begins putting in oak planks on the ground. She places a copper bulb on the ground next to a pressure plate, and we see the bulb turns on when the pressure plate is activated. We then see her put the bulb underneath the door, and we see it turns on when the pressure plate is activated. This seems to be acting as a way to let her know that someone has been in her house. She carefully leaves her house and says that she'll wait. She then begins chopping down trees, makes wooden planks, goes to explore, then we cut to black. We then find Plu in front of the cave entrance, and she goes inside, double checking her difficulty setting. She then makes a note of time, letting us know that 0 minutes have gone by. We then cut again to the inside of the cave, letting us know that it's been 15 hours. We see her come across another copper structure, possibly the same one from before. However, it looks relatively fresh as the copper hasn't seemed to oxidize much. They leave the structure and begin looking around the cave, stumbling on a patch of diamonds that they gladly mine. However, on the last diamond, she says some interesting things.
I just want to ignore it, but I can't. I don't believe in ghosts, but I don't want to think that he...
And then it cuts to black. This is super important as Plu seems to know what happened to Reepoch and knows about Reepoch's death. She's entertaining the idea that Reepoch's ghost is in the world with her, which could explain all the strange occurrences with copper. We cut back in with her saying,
I don't know why, but it...
And then it cuts to black again. We cut again to Plu somewhere in the cave above lava, only for this horrific message to appear. Is this confirmation that she's not alone in the world? Is Reepoch or Reepoch's ghost truly here with her? We don't get a name tag for whoever said this message, but the glitching is very much the same as how Reepoch's name tag is usually hidden in their other videos. Plu begins to type,
I knew I wasn't f***ing,
but deletes it and begins going back through the cave again. Plu says they're just tired, sleep deprived, and that it wasn't real text. Plu thinks it's hallucinations. They type sorry and that they didn't think that there's copper on the top. We start to see the footage getting more corrupted as they make enough space to mine the copper above them. Plu begins mining all the copper that's above them, and then we cut back to Plu's house. We see that they don't have the copper on them anymore, with Plu saying that she still has her stuff, thinking that everything was a hallucination, but then she remembers about the copper lantern under the planks. To our horror, we see that the copper lantern is on, and we know for a fact that Plu didn't step on the pressure plate. As this fact sets in, we see the footage start to become more grainy and a bit corrupt. She covers the hole in the ground, removes the pressure plate, and begins looking around frantically. We begin to hear loud beeps as the screen glitches. We get a weird sequence of glitches that pop on the screen, and they get something extremely interesting. We get 2 end URLs for YouTube. Before we go into these URLs, the description of the video reads,
This isn't real. I'm just tired and need my anti-psych. November 1st, 2025.
With everything that we've seen, it's possible that it could just be hallucinations that we're seeing from the perspective of Plu, and with Plu mining the copper only for it to not be there anymore when she returns home is a strong case for this. But if it's not, then could it really be the ghost of Reepoch that's haunting the world? We do see that the pressure plate was activated at some point, and the message in chat did hide Reepoch's name, although it's assumed to be them based on the glitches covering their name. Plu also does seem to know about Reepoch's ultimate fate, but we aren't certain about if it's hallucinations or Reepoch's ghost actually inside of the world. We'll look at the YouTube URL on the left side of the screen first, and when we type this into the browser, we're taken to a video titled Our Old World. We open with a bedrock wall with torches on them, and it seems like we're inside a cave somewhere. Eerie music is playing, and after exactly 1 minute, we seem to cut somewhere inside of the cave. It's hard to tell exactly where we are, as the red light and dark colors make it hard to determine. We then cut to the chamber where it seems to be the aftermath of Plu building up out of the chamber. We then see the inside of Plu's house, the copper structure that Reepoch presumably built. But then we cut to Plu's house being on fire and burning down, and we watch it burn down until there's basically nothing left. We then get this long number here, which is actually the seed of the world. If we enter this inside of Minecraft and let the world load, we see a very familiar world. We spot the pumpkins that Plu destroys in Something I Didn't Do, and if we fly a bit higher, we can actually see the area where Plu made their house. We can see the snowy mountain where Plu was standing in their first video, so it's interesting that Reepoch gave us the seed to this world. If we keep watching, we see a snowy sunset with a flower growing in the middle of something, possibly representing a grave. If we have captions on, we see the heartwarming words of,
I forgive you.
This is oddly nice. It seems like Reepoch has finally forgiven Plu for what happened. If it was Reepoch haunting Plu's world before, it looks like Reepoch's spirit can finally rest. If we look at the video's description, we see the following.
I forgive you. November 14th, 2025.
It is interesting that Reepoch gave us the world seed in order for us to take a look at it, but it may be a kind gesture towards us as the audience to maybe play it and make better memories on it. Whatever the reason, we now have the seed of the world. This isn't quite the end of the story, however. The URL on the right leads us to an unlisted video by Plu titled Asari. We begin the video by Plu still on their old world. We see there's film grain all over the footage, and she begins cooking fish in a furnace. She tells us that she still hasn't slept and her footage begins to corrupt. She then starts to say something but deletes her message before she can finish it. She cooks her fish and begins heading into the forest. As she does this, the word forgive appears on screen for a moment. We cut back to Plu still wandering around. She stops and then says,
Why can't I find orange?
We then see that she stares at the sunrise and begins heading in the direction of it. She stops and then says,
Orange was his favorite color. What I did wasn't right. I should be dead or locked away forever. But being...
Then we cut to Plu exploring again. This is huge. They do acknowledge that what they did to Reepoch was wrong. If she was the indirect cause of Reepoch's death, it makes sense that she feels guilty about that, feeling like she should be locked away or dead. It also makes sense that she would try to forget about that, as that's a heavy thing to carry on your mind. We see her chat history appear, and it seems like before it got cut off, what she was trying to say was something along the lines of,
but being blank with Reepoch stopped me from getting what I deserved.
Plu continued onwards, saying,
I wish that day on the bridge was a hallucination. What I did wasn't right. The least I can do now is say sorry.
Plu heads back into the cave and makes her way down to the copper structure. She then says,
I hope you don't mind, Reepoch.
Which is the first time she's mentioned him by name now. She mines the copper blocks and we cut to black. We then see her going to mine some redstone, and we see that she found the bedrock wall of torches that Reepoch made. And this is confirmed when she says,
I'm guessing you made that. I like it.
It's a stark contrast to the way that she called Reepoch's copper castle ugly, and I think it's worth noting. She says that it makes it less scary down here. She begins to climb up the ladder that leads underneath her bed in her house, but then she says,
but I'm sure that's not why you made it. You probably want me dead.
And sure, this may have been true at one point in time, but we now know that Reepoch made his peace and has forgiven Plu. Plu silently climbs the ladder and reaches the top, arriving back at her house. She covers the hole and she walks into the forest with a copper block in hand. She begins placing the copper blocks, making something. We then cut to where the build is finished, and it's a small shrine with a flower in front of it. We see Plu says that she's sorry that she couldn't find orange. She then picks up the yellow flower, but we see that she said something in the chat that reads,
I got the closest I could, which happens to be my favorite, which you probably hate, so...
We cut to black again, but this time she's placed down a red flower saying,
there.
Plu walks back to her house, saying that the sunset is orange too. She then walks inside her house as we cut to black. We then cut back to Plu at the shrine, just asking for Reepoch to show her that he's here. If you have captions enabled, we receive another end URL for a YouTube video, and we also get a glitched version of it as well. We see that Plu is finally accepting the loss of Reepoch, and she blames herself for what happened. Despite not being able to find an orange flower for his shrine, it shows that she has grown as a person, as she's finally able to come to terms with reality and understand that what she did was wrong. The description of the video reads,
What's wrong with me? November 1st, 2025.
It's a truly sad video, but there's another video that we need to watch. By putting in the URL, we're taken to another unlisted video from Plu called Copper. We begin this video by someone frantically looking around in distorted footage. We come to find that it's Plu who's inside some sort of copper structure. All they have is wood, flint and steel, and some sticks. They appear trapped in some sort of copper cell after lighting up the cell a bit with the flint and steel. Plu breaks a copper block and is able to craft a pickaxe with the material she has. She begins breaking the copper blocks in the darkness. Then we cut to black, and then we cut back into where she's saying sorry for burning it, but she couldn't see. She continues breaking the copper blocks with her wooden pickaxe. After a few blocks are broken, someone, most likely Reepoch, asks why she's so persistent, and she actually responds saying that she's overwhelmed with guilt. This makes sense, considering that the video before it is her coming to terms with everything and feeling like the death of Reepoch is her fault, and she's destroying the thing that Reepoch likes a lot, being copper. We're suddenly jump scared with another message that says,
so then why not just go kill another and do more powder?
When I saw this, I immediately looked at the description, which reads,
sorry, November 2nd, 2025.
Okay, this makes sense. Remember, these videos are a bit out of order, and Reepoch's forgiveness happens on November 14th, so at this point in time, Reepoch hasn't forgiven Plu. I know it's confusing, but I promise I'll explain everything in a cohesive way towards the end of this video. Getting back on track, this message is interesting, as doing powder is a way that some people cope with things. It's not healthy by any means, but it is a way to get your mind off it, forget it, and try to get past it, which could be what Plu has been trying to do for an unknown amount of time. Plu responds to the message as she types in chat,
no, I won't. I know that's the reason I'm like this, and why you're dead, haunting me.
Plu keeps mining the copper blocks, but then we cut to black and get this absolutely spine-chilling chat from Reepoch.
Then keep mining. It won't bring me back, but I can enjoy watching you struggle like you watched me drown, bleeding and crying.
Plu only says sorry, and they try to mine the copper with their hands. We can see how far they've gone once they turn around, but they immediately go back to trying to mine the copper. They use the last bit of wood they have to create a wooden pickaxe and just keep mining. Plu then says,
I'm guessing this is the other side of it.
But Reepoch cuts her off, saying,
stop.
Plu deletes their message, only to say,
sorry.
We then get text on screen that says,
for 12 days I was clueless, mining away for eternity. Then I remembered.
Then we're given another YouTube end URL, and by putting it in, we're taken to a video titled Escape. We begin the video with Plu still in the long, dark copper block tunnel that they've been going through. If we check the description of the video, it reads,
"Why? We escape. November 14th, 2025.
So it truly has been 12 days of mining. Back in the video, we see Repak ask,
Why are you doing this?
Plu only says sorry in response. We cut and we see her mining with her bare hands again, making the process even slower than before, and finally she's able to break into something that isn't just copper. We can't tell for sure what it is right away, but it's better than just another copper block. She breaks the last copper block and we see that she's back inside a cave. She asks,
Repak?
no response. She simply says,
Sorry.
we cut to black and we see her chat say,
You will never forgive me, I know, but I'm sorry.
She walks through the cave, then we cut to black again, and this time she's on the surface. She finds her way back to the house and enters. She stares at the inside of her house, and when she opens her chest, she finds a lot of TNT and one single orange tulip. Text appears on the screen saying,
At first, I wasn't sure which end I hallucinated and which was real, but I didn't know which one I wished for.
We see Plu lighting her house on fire with her inventory filled with TNT. She goes outside and begins walking in the forest until we cut to black again. We cut back in and she's entering the cave entrance with a chat that reads,
I don't even deserve signs from you.
We cut again, and this time she's placing TNT all over the cave entrance with a bunch of chats that read,
I don't deserve you.
She types,
I don't deserve you at all. I killed you. I hate myself for it every day, and now I deserve to be hated by you.
She makes her way back home and we see the orange tulip. Her house is all gone, burned down with nothing left. She says,
You've always been so...
She picks up the orange flower and begins walking. She then says,
I can't think of the words. Why do you forgive me? I don't deserve this from anyone, not you the most.
She begins climbing the snowy hill saying,
You know what? I was wrong about copper.
She keeps climbing and as she does, she sees the sun rising. She then says,
I was wrong. It's beautiful. It can change colors over time, like how the sky went from orange to blue, then from blue to black.
She then asks,
Hey, Repak, can I join you in the beyond?
We cut to a beautiful scenery. There's a tree with a beehive and a planted orange tulip, all shown with bright, vibrant colors. It's bittersweet, as she's able to truly accept what happened and she's able to move on. What's not made too clear is if she really joined him in the beyond after this video, since it does sound like there's a heartbeat monitor that flatlines. I suppose it's left up for interpretation, but it's nice to at least see that she's able to accept what happened. There's just one lingering question that doesn't really seem to be answered yet. What exactly happened on the bridge between Repak and Plu? If we check out Repak's YouTube channel, as that's where all of the unlisted videos of the night are, we see one public video titled A Bridge to a New World. This video could contain the answer to one of the biggest questions that we've had this entire time. We begin by seeing Plu's full username as a question if we have captions enabled. We then see who we think is Repak on a bridge surrounded by water. They ask themselves if they are dead through captions. They say that it seemed very quick. They walk towards a gate and come across the end of the bridge. They say Plu's name, take a look around, then say,
Copper would look much better here.
This confirms it's Repak, despite their name being glitched out again. The screen starts to glitch a bit, then it turns to night with a copper bridge, copper lanterns, and copper posts. Repak then starts shaking, and Repak jumps through the gate into the water. We see that they begin to drown. This goes on for a while and some text appears. This is an encoded message, and we can decode it using a Caesar cipher, and by doing so, we get the following message.
I don't live in a world of grayscale or monochromatic. I don't live in a world where my hair is red and my eyes are hazel, but one where my hair is copper and my eyes are amber. I live in an autumn world where the leaves are not brown but bronze, and the sunsets are not orange but golden. This saffron and ginger-colored world is bejeweled with emeralds and sapphire books, and walnut and cedar coffee, scarlet and vermilion apples, and marigold and chartreuse pumpkins.
We don't quite know what that means, but there's another message that follows shortly after, saying,
It's all her fault. I cannot stop sinking. I sink into an ocean that isolates me. The water muffles the sound of them laughing and mocking me at the bottom. Instead of feeling the rough sand on my feet, I feel something cool and smooth. I look down and see reddish brown with a metallic shine.
The video then glitches out, cutting to black, with only the following captions remaining.
I am going to hurt you, PluJ33.
Which marks the end of this video. Looking at the description, we see the following.
And spirits, Plu, I am going to hurt you, June 15th, 2021.
And with this final video, I think I finally understand the full story. On June 9th, 2021, we meet Reepoch, who is showing us their copper castle. Reepoch seems to have feelings for Plu, as they hope Plu likes them, despite not liking the copper castle that she called ugly. On June 10th, 2021, we meet Plu, who is showing us around their new world that they created with the seed that Reepoch had given to her. She built her house in the same spot as Reepoch built his copper castle, once again confirming the connection between the two in the early parts of the story. On June 12th, 2021, Reepoch seems to confess his feelings for Plu and asks her on a date, but she rejects him. This puts Reepoch in a state where their emotions seem to be everywhere, ranging from anger at the rejection to sadness since she may not even notice that he's gone if he were to ever leave, but it appears that the two are still friends despite this. On June 15th, 2021, that's when the tragic accident occurred. Based on what we understand, Reepoch and Plu were on a bridge somewhere. Plu was attempting to get Reepoch to jump in some water, but Reepoch was scared to make the jump, worried that the fall into the water would hurt. However, instead of reassuring Reepoch like a good friend would, or understanding that he just doesn't want to make the jump, Plu takes a more humiliating path with this, calling Reepoch a scaredy cat. But she makes this even worse by saying that she rejected him because she doesn't want to be with a weirdo like him. I believe this is what causes Reepoch to make the jump into the water. It's very possible that Reepoch maybe didn't know how to swim, or that Reepoch hit something on his way down into the water, or maybe even hit something in the water. But for whatever reason, Reepoch is struggling to swim and is actively drowning. Plu doesn't really notice this and instead just laughs and mocks them, and Reepoch notices this and remembers this as he vows to hurt Plu for rejecting him, humiliating him, and sitting idly by while he drowned. However, by the time Plu notices this and attempts to do something about it, it's too late. Plu presumably calls the police to report the accident. This has traumatized Plu as she feels responsible for his death despite it being labeled as an accident. Although she didn't directly kill Reepoch, she could have saved him, but instead she watched him drown. Unable to bear the weight of the guilt, she tries to forget about it. There was mention of powder usage, and it's possible this is when it started as a way to forget about the accident. We then jump to October 19th, 2021, 4 months after the accident, where we follow Plu's adventures into the cave of the world. They still do remember Reepoch, and we begin to see the first strange occurrences in the world, with the copper structure and the copper pillar that leads up underneath Plu's bed. These are the first signs that Reepoch is indeed haunting Plu's world, as the tutorial video that Reepoch made on the so-called prank pretty much confirms this. It's possible that Plu couldn't be in the world anymore, as it all reminded her of what had happened, so she left the world as it was. A lot of time goes by when Plu revisits her old world on October 15th, 2025, a little over 4 years since the accident. Plu stumbles across more strange occurrences as she explores this long-forgotten world, such as the book in the item frame that was given the name of Ion, where the future truly is a returning version of the past, the weird chamber that Plu finds, and the hidden passages that lead to the copper lanterns, which makes her feel like she's not alone in the world, and adds more proof that Reepoch could be haunting her world. Plu presumably leaves the world, very creeped out by it all, but on November 1st, 2025, she finds herself back in the world due to memories of it. She decides to test the theory of seeing if someone is really here in her world, so she sets up a copper bulb as a way to test this. She waits for more than 15 hours, staying up, sleep deprived, and then the strange occurrences begin again. She once again comes across another copper structure not built by her, and she does entertain the idea that Reepoch could be haunting her due to all of the things that she's seen so far. We see an actual chat message from Reepoch, and she begins mining copper when she finds it. This is when we start to wonder if Reepoch's ghost is just a hallucination, as it could be a manifestation of her guilt instead of an actual ghost, as she says she needs to take her anti-psych medicines and is tired. However, we see that the copper bulb is actually on despite us knowing Plu never touched the pressure plate, so it's possible that it leans more into Reepoch's ghost actually being in the world, haunting her and wanting to hurt her. After the strange events, Plu goes out looking for an orange flower. During this, she remembers everything that happened and blames herself, as she feels like she should be dead or locked away forever. But because it was ruled an accident and she didn't directly kill Reepoch, this didn't happen. She wishes that the bridge accident never happened, acknowledging that what she did was wrong and that all she can say is sorry. As she wanders around the world a bit more, she finds the bedrock wall of torches that Reepoch made, which makes her less scared of the dark. She goes back to the surface to make a shrine for Reepoch and wants Reepoch to make himself known to her, but she got a bit more than she bargained for. On November 2nd, 2025, Plu finds herself in a copper structure and attempts to mine out of it. Reepoch asks her why she's so persistent, and Plu responds that she's overwhelmed with guilt. Reepoch tells her to kill someone else and just do powder to forget about it as a response to this. Still clearly angry at Plu, Plu says that she doesn't want to do that anymore, as it's the reason she's like this and why he's dead. It's still not fully clear if there was usage of powder at the bridge based on Plu saying it's why he's dead, but it could explain a lot if they were under the influence of something at the time. Reepoch just says that he'll enjoy watching her struggle, just like she watched him drowning without doing anything. Plu only says sorry and continues to try to escape. On November 14th, 2025, after 12 days of mining, she finally escaped back into the cave inside of her world. She still says that she's sorry, knowing that Reepoch may never forgive her, She goes home, grabs a bunch of TNT and flint and steel, burns her house down, and is about to blow up the cave entrance, but it's not clear if she actually did. She goes back home to find that an orange tulip was planted, which seems to be Repok's way of forgiving her, as we see that he had a view of her house burning down, and then we see that a torch flower was planted with the words, "I forgive you," underneath it. She climbs up the mountain and sees the sun rising over top a mountain, finally being able to accept what happened. This is a very sad ARG with a bittersweet ending, with a few key elements being open to interpretation. We're shown two different journeys. The first is the journey of someone who is running away from a tragic event, blaming themselves for the death of another, being haunted by that guilt, and trying their hardest to forget it, but eventually facing it, coming to terms with what happened, and being able to move on in their own way. The second is the journey of the one who was wronged, holding onto that hatred, wishing for the suffering of the one who wronged them, but being able to forgive them in the end, and being freed from the chains of hate. It's important to forgive, and it's important to process events and emotions in a healthy way. I really hope you enjoyed this video. This is a fantastic ARG, and I'm glad that someone recommended it to me to cover. Thank you for all of the support that you showed on the first ARG video as well, as it motivated me to make this video. I plan on making more videos like this, so stick around and feel free to send Minecraft ARGs my way. My name is RespawnRaccoon, and I'll see you in the next one.